Hey, and welcome back to Master of None. Today we're going to pimp my snare. I got this snare off Facebook Marketplace for 50 bucks. This video is for all the drummers out there who has their first snare laying around doing nothing. These easy modifications will want to pull your nostalgic first snare out of retirement and add to your arsenal for gigs and recording. Alrighty, let's get into it. Firstly, we'll beat off this snare as a reference. We'll start off breaking down this snare with the chain. Next, we will remove the hoops. Now we will remove the chain anchor and throw. Then remove the lugs. Only use the drill for the removal of the lugs, not the installation. This snare is stained and clear coated, otherwise you would have to remove the wrap, which I'll show you in the next video of this series. I've taped up all the lug holes, and now we're going to get some masking tape and tape up the bearing edges. We only want to paint the inside of the drum. It makes it easier to cut little slits in the tape to fold them over. That's all taped up. Now we're going to do our first coat of primer. We're going to do 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of paint. It helps with the overspray if you lay the drum down on its side. I learned that the hard way. I'm just using a cheap heat gun from Bunnings to dry the paint, but you can let it air dry. I'm just a bit impatient. Now that's dry, we're going to use the first coat of enamel paint. You need to do a light sand between coats. The purpose of painting the inside of the drum is to make the internal surface of the drum rigid. This will make the drum louder, which we're going to control with some bad boy vent holes. We're going to do 2 coats of clear coat. I recommend giving it a day between coats to dry, just so it gets nice and hard. You can do more coats, but 2 is the minimum. Righto, now we're going to mark out our vent holes. This is a 10 lug snare, so the holes aren't going to be symmetrical. This is okay, but you're just going to make sure wherever you put a vent hole, there's another hole opposite it. There's more accurate ways to mark out the vent holes, but I'm just going to show you an easy way. You colour in the lug holes with a Sharpie. With Barry, your bendy ruler, you just draw a line that goes through the center of both holes. Now we're going to measure the depth of our drum, then divide it by 2, and that'll give us the middle of our drum height-wise. A good tip is to write the numbers down on the masking tape, because you're going to be doing 4 holes. Now we're going to measure between both lines and find the center of that. We're going to drill pilot holes as a guide for our hole saw. The diameter of the drill bit just has to be smaller than the one on your hole saw. It also helps if the drill's not in hammer mode. Nailed it. Now I'm going to repeat the process 3 more times. It helps just to use the weight of the drill and not pushing too hard. Now we're going to tape up the back of the holes to try and mitigate the plywood blowing out when we hole through. I'm going to put tape the other way just because I've convinced myself it makes it stronger. The amount of tape will just be relative to the size of the hole saw. Alrighty, let's drill our first hole. Same as before, just let the weight of the drill do all the work. I'm stoked we didn't get any blowouts. Hopefully you're doing this on your old ratty snare so there's heaps of room for error. I'm using a 38mm hole saw today, but I wouldn't go too much bigger than 42mm. If you're going to use chains when beating off this snare, it's good practice to do it in a bed. This shell didn't have a snare bed, so we're going to hand sand one in. This step is optional, but it's worth it. Now we're going to use Barry to find the center of the snare bed, using the same method as before. We're going to go with a 100mm snare bed with 20mm tapers and 4mm deep. This snare bed is more optimal for an 8 lug snare. With that said, I should have went an 80mm snare bed, due to the tapers ending right on the lug holes. Screenshot this. Hand sanding is the best way to cut these beds in. Take your time and always check how close to the line you get. Once you're finished, give everything a light sand. Another option is to seal your vent holes with oils or beeswax. But don't seal your bearing edges. Righto, let's build this bad boy. The vent holes will make your drum sound drier, and also it'll get quicker the harder you hit it. Put in your original vent hole. Mount your anchor. And mount your throw. Rebadge. The original snare head split when I was tightening the hoops. Hello! I went with a Remo controlled sound for the top. Giving CPR to your snare will bring it back to life. And I went with the Remo Ambassador for the bottom. This combination of skins will turn any snare off its head. Once the chains are in their new bed, you'll be ready to beat this snare off. Now let's test this snare in my acoustically challenged garage. Cheers for watching Master of None. I really hope you give this modification a go. And if you get this next reference, comment below. As always, more cowbell.